Oh, this bitch. Now what? She's on the phone? She's on her other phone? She's on her other phone with her comments off. No? She's just sitting silently. Of course, all we can hear is Ginger drinking. Lisa.
Thank you guys for the gifts. I'm sorry. I will message you guys personally and tell you thank you. I'm sorry.
I bet you will.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you guys.
Oh my God, look at how filthy her hair is.
The pole came down. Fuck. It's all right, though. I don't think anybody really was worried about it, but...
Nope.
In case, I guess.
Nope.
But yeah. What's her name? I just want this app to kind of be normal and fun again and not so hostile. Like I literally come on here, deep breaths, ready to fucking fight. Like, it's crazy. And everybody's like, why are you so mean? Why are you so rude? Well, I wasn't rude and I wasn't in a bad mood until I got on here and started getting called, a this and a that, and my kid's this and my mom's a that. And I mean, come on. How would you like that? Seriously, like, put yourself in my shoes for 5 minutes. 5 seconds.
Nobody said that.
Like, how would you like that?
Nobody said that.
You don't want to be on here doing this.
Mac or Grace? Does Mac know you're giving money to an addict? Same too. Oh, wait. Hippie Nana.
You report me for crying all you want.
No, report you for begging.
Now they're flagging my life. I don't know what I did. Because every time I say anything about them, those people that try to scare people or bully people, they always do that to me. Get my life taken down for nothing.
You're the bully. You're the bully. You're the bully.
It's fucking 5 o'clock. Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. Okay, be okay.
Let's talk about seizures. So, Big Brain says her dad has weird seizures where he'll just be, I remember this because every time she's described her dad's seizures, I remember what she says. So he'll just be sitting there and he kind of like spaces out and he'll slur his words and blah, blah, blah. It's like he's not there. Or he'll be walking and gets really wobbly. So if you type in seizure types and causes, you'll come up with some reputable places. The CDC, you'll get the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, even the Epilepsy Foundation, National Institute of Health. Pick from any one of them if you'd like to learn more about seizures. First off, Lisa has always said, as has Ronnie, that their dad does not have seizure disorder. He does not have epilepsy. Okay, well, that narrows it down. Now, as I said in the comments to somebody, as somebody who has worked in the field 20 years, I've seen my share of seizures. I used to, when I first moved up here, I thought I was the only person in the county that didn't have seizures. Seriously. Seizures can be acquired through a trauma, a physical trauma, a car accident, a bonk on the head. It can be caused by certain underlying conditions. It can be caused by in-your-face conditions like a stroke, a heart attack, anything like that. Sorry, I had a brain fart. And then you have your people who are born with seizure disorder, epilepsy, for various reasons. Some need a shunt. Some have just some little spot of brain damage in one part of their brain. It affects you in that way. A lot of things can trigger seizures, from medications to foods to stress to you name it, flashing lights, bright lights, temperature changes, extremes, emotions, like extreme anger. They'll be in the middle of yelling and have a seizure. So there's different kinds of seizures. You have your tonic-clonic, you have your absence, You have, you name it. So I'm choosing to go with Mayo for now. So basically, seizures are a like an electrical storm. That's how my instructor taught me. It's like your neurons are having an electrical storm, like a surge in a power line. Sorry, I have to grab my coffee and take care of Terry because I run a flop house for cats. Oh God, those people just had 2 more litters. Okay, so your little neurons are in your head, right? Little neurons and little nerves run through, and where the gap is, that's the synapse. You usually have a little electrical spark. It jumps from neuron to neuron. And the problem is that sometimes if something triggers it off, they go crazy. And instead of going on a normal pathway, they get all confused and start just kind of like, and then you get a seizure. Okay? So her description of Dad, which was verified by Frauditor, that he was on a vent in ICU. I hate to say this, you can fake seizures. Generally, you'll sternal rub a fake seizure, done it a million times, and they come boiling up. All you have to do is make a knuckle like this and rub really hard on someone's sternum. If they are truly having a seizure, they will, or are unconscious, they will not respond. If they are faking, they will bolt upright because it really hurts. Hey, okay, I know the cat is freaking you out. It's okay, Kitty's nice. Kitty's nice, okay? I don't know why Kitty's freaking Milo out lately. Kitty's nice. So, Dad was on a vent. That's, like I was saying to someone in the comments, the only reason we ever would put seizure patients on a vent is if they're in something called status epilepticus, where seizures do not stop. You can keep giving them Valium, and as soon as it peaks and starts to decline, the amount of Valium in them starts decreasing, the status comes back. And so they start seizing on the vent. And so you have to just keep them on like a benzo drip to keep them, or a Keppra drip, whatever they respond to best. From what Lisa said, and that's all we can go off of, he was climbing the steps and said to her brother, we need to go to the ER. And I thought she said he couldn't breathe. That's completely different. And then she said, oh, I'm happy because while he was in the ER, he had a seizure so they could see it start to finish. Well, if he's having absence seizures, an ER in Pittsburgh would probably be too busy to really pay attention. From how she describes them. Now, if he's having tonic-clonic seizures where he is flopping like a fish, sure, they're going to notice that because you hear the gurney rattling. And they make choking sounds sometimes. So, yeah, you will notice that. But, when you're in a busy ER, you have the curtain closed for patient privacy. Nobody was with him. And a lot of times you're going off your medic, your tech, your even your secretary, overhearing the noises. And if you're in a room, God help you. So he must have come in for shortness of breath. He's diabetic, we know. He's post-CVA. He's had strokes. It sounded like he had a heart attack at some point in life. He's overweight. So he's got every marker to have everything wrong. If he's having absence seizures, my guess would be it was from the strokes. And often strokes, especially not hemorrhagic, but clotting strokes, will create damage that does not show up initially on scans. It takes sometimes a year for the damage to be seen because the clots are so tiny. I told you guys my ex had embolized showers after his open heart surgery, and we MRI'd his brain. I don't know how many times the first 6 months, nothing showed. And I kept telling the neurologist, something is wrong with this man. This is not the man I married. This isn't the man I know. His own children are freaking out. Everything he used to like, he hated. Everything he was good at, he suddenly was not. Things he hated and was not good at, suddenly he was. It took 6 to 9 months to show up on an MRI. And then we would have MRIs every 3 months just to see how bad the damage was. And every time we did them, more and more spots of damage would show up. And it's because it takes that long when the clots are that tiny. So I could believe he's having seizures basically from his stroke, but brought on by stress. The man's getting evicted for the 5th time, and he tends to pull the I'm sick. Why mom couldn't just tumble out of her wheelchair and go to the doctor and cry, I don't know, because that's what patients here do to postpone eviction. It's a thing everybody does. You should see up here. We had people that literally ran their cars into trees and rocks out in the country to injure themselves. I've had people who broke bones just to delay an eviction. I'm not joking. Because by law, if somebody is suddenly disabled or sick, you cannot legally evict them. So you get like an extra 6 to, I think, 18 weeks. I think that varies state by state. And I'm sure Pennsylvania is, like most states. I think it's 2 months is the most popular amount. So obviously he's done this before, and you can't make yourself go on a vent. That's what confuses me. Okay? Something tells me this man had RSV, he had a cold, he has COPD, he has some reason, because I'm going to tell you something. Doctors do not like putting patients on vents. It is dangerous. It can cause real problems for people who don't require a vent. If they don't know what's going on and you're not a danger to yourself, if he's having absence seizures, he would not be a danger to himself. You would not put a patient on a vent. Now, if he's having trouble breathing, that's completely different. So far, I hear he had already been, as of yesterday, the 6th, he has been bumped to med surg. Yes, patients can be discharged out of the unit. Generally, you don't do that because usually you're started on a new medication, be it for diabetes, your heart, your brain, whatever. And doc wants to make sure that the initial complaint is not going to return, or you are going to have a reaction to the medicine. So they'll bump you down to a non-tele floor, like a med surg floor, wherever they have an open bed. Certain times of the year, hospitals are really packed. February to April tends to be a really busy period in inpatient land because everybody has the flu. Everybody has RSV. Everybody has COVID. Just a fact of life. So I've been put on oncology. It was depressing as hell, but I had a private room. But generally, you're bumped out of the units into a med surg. Unless you have an underlying heart condition, you're not going to go to a tele floor because insurance doesn't want to pay for a tele tech. So he'll spend a day or two. He may come home tonight. Who knows? But he'll come home. But why he was placed on the vent is my curiosity. I don't believe it was for the seizures because everybody in the family says there is no epilepsy in the family. They have had a history of febrile seizures in their children, which is quite normal. If the temperature goes high enough, kids seize. And believe me, it is really hard talking down a new first-time parent with a febrile seizure baby. But once they get it through their head that this is normal, it's not going to do anything to your child, you're going to be fine. It can happen anytime the kid spikes a fever, then they're okay. You teach them how to deal with the fever, okay? And then they become pros at it, and it doesn't bother them as much. Seeing a seizure, seeing convulsions is scary. Your first time, it is frightening. I was fortunate. The first patient I ever had that had a full-blown convulsive fit in the unit was in leather restraints. And I don't mean to laugh, but you've never seen people unrestrain a patient faster. And you would think it would be the opposite. No, because leather restraints do not give. They're not like the Velcro fabric restraints. They do not give. And this was a prisoner. And if the contracture of a limb is strong enough, which in seizures it usually is, that leather will not give, and the bone doesn't give either. It just snaps. So you have to undo them really fast. So I'm thinking, and it's just my opinion, I am thinking he was not on a vent for the seizures. He was on a vent because he couldn't breathe. You have to have a very good reason to be placed on the vent. ER docs are not jumping for joy to intubate. Trust me. Nobody in the field wants to intubate. It's not fun. And a lot of things can go wrong. So the other thing was, somebody was saying in my comments that RJ overheard on the phone call yesterday, was talking to the nurse on speaker, and he said that 5 people would be on the family list for visiting. And they said Lisa wouldn't be on that list. Okay. And I explained in the comments, if he was in the unit, I've worked with intensivists who were really good at reading family dynamics and taking Lisa's family as an example. They would be able to ascertain from speaking to the wife, speaking to the son, and through their line of questioning, what is setting this off, and picking out, oh, this family member is a problem. Okay, this family member has contributed stress. That person would not be allowed on the list. Now, that said, I have also worked with my fair share of intensivists who are so focused on their job, they do not see family dynamics. You could tell them what was going on, and they would just look at you, blink their eyes, and go, okay, how is their amylase? Like, hello, are you listening? I mean, I've seen charge nurses try to explain it in childlike terms, and they still, okay, whatever. What's his PEEP on? What? Hello? That said, Lisa said that he was in a medically induced coma. You tend not to do that to patients unless they're bucking the vent a lot, which some patients do. It's annoying. It's annoying. I've been awake on a vent, and it is very uncomfortable. Some people panic. If he's having shortness of breath and he has an underlying COPD or something like that, then yes, you're going to sedate him for his own comfort, and also to let his body heal and to allow the vent to do what it's meant to do, and not have him bucking it. If it was about seizures, you generally don't want to sedate patients. You want neuro patients, head injury, stuff like that. You need a patient to be fully conscious and aware. And if they're unconscious, you need their brain to not be clouded. Pain medicine, yes, for whatever other injuries they have, but you need to be able to assess their brain function. And you can't do that when someone is induced. Does that make sense? You can't cloud somebody's brain activity, snow it, and then assess them, because it would be an improper assessment. It would be an assessment based upon medication. So any neuro case, they tend to not induce comas at all. Generally, we would do it for heart and respiratory trauma. That's it. It doesn't make sense. A lot of this doesn't make sense. I'm going to say he went in for breathing, respiratory difficulties, whatever. I don't know if the man had been sick. He just consequentially had a seizure while he was there. Maybe because he was stressed out. Maybe he didn't have a seizure. We're going off Lisa, okay? All we know for sure is the man was in ICU and on a vent. And he was sedated. So I'm going to say it's not the seizures. The seizures she describes, as I said, were absence seizures. Now, absence seizures, the patient just literally becomes catatonic for a period of time. It can be very small amount of time, seconds to an hour. They'll just, like in the middle of a sentence, kind of trail off and stare at something and stop speaking and stop responding. And it's like they're just there, but they're not there. It's not your typical seizure that people think of when you say seizures. What people see on TV or in movies where people are convulsing and really violently thrashing, those are tonic-clonic seizures, where the muscles are contracting and then thrashing. That can happen. Oh, there's all kinds. Focal, it can start on one side of your brain, and then the electrical storm will go all the way across the hemisphere and go to the other side of the brain. It can be just focal, where it's one side of your body, and not travel. You name it, there's a million kinds. So let's go check them out. Okay, so most seizures fall into two classes: focal seizures and generalized seizures. We used to call them squeezers. Okay, so you have the focal seizures with impaired awareness, okay? And focal are one side of the brain, not both sides of the brain, one side. So it's going to affect whatever area of the brain that controls, okay? So, involves a change, loss of consciousness, awareness, feels like being in a dream. This is with impaired awareness. During these types of seizures, people may seem awake, but they stare into space, don't respond to anything around them. They may repeat movements like hand rubbing, mouth movements, certain words, walk in circles. They don't remember the seizure or even know it happened. Okay, so that is pretty much an absence seizure, and it sounds like what Lisa describes. Focal seizures without impaired awareness. These seizures may change emotions. It changes how things look, smell, feel, taste, and sound. People having a focal seizure do not pass out. During these seizures, people may feel angry, joyful, or sad. Some people have nausea, odd feelings, hard to describe. These seizures may cause trouble speaking, jerking of a body part such as an arm or leg. They may cause sudden symptoms such as tingling, dizziness, and seeing flashing lights. Now, that has nothing to do with the flashing light warning you see on videos and movies, okay? Those warnings are for a different type of seizure. Okay. Generalized seizures. So you have your absence seizure. Often happen in children. It's funny. Yeah. I've seen it more in kids. I've seen adults fake it a lot. That's when you do your sternal rub. These seizures once were called petit mal seizures. A lot of you remember that one. People who have absence seizures most often stare into space, make slight body movements like eye blinking or lip smacking. They usually last 5 to 10 seconds. They can happen up to hundreds of times a day. They can come in clusters, and they can cause a brief loss of awareness. Then you have your tonic seizures. Tonic seizures cause muscles to get stiff. These seizures most often affect muscles in the back, arms, and legs. They may pass out or fall to the ground. You have atonic seizures, which is a sudden loss of muscle use, most often in the legs. They're called drop seizures. People having this type of seizure may collapse. Well, that's a duh. Clonic seizures are linked with jerking muscle movements. These seizures usually affect the neck, face, arms on both sides of the body. Myoclonic seizures often cause sudden brief jerks or twitches in the arms and legs. People who have these seizures don't often pass out. And then you have your classic tonic-clonic seizure, the most common type of generalized seizure. They were once called grand mal seizures. Y'all remember that one. They can cause passing out, body stiffness, shaking. They're sometimes cause people to urinate or bite their tongues. They can last for several minutes. They may start at focal seizures and spread and involve most or all of the brain. And that's what I was saying. Tonic-clonic also is your classic movie seizure. They can be quite violent, and on top of biting your tongue, you injure yourself. And these are the seizures you will see people take on YouTube. You will see some people video them as an awareness, and the family member will place them on the ground rapidly and then shove all the furniture away so they don't hurt themselves. And then they have a postictal period directly after having the seizure, when the brain activity shorts itself out and it stops, and the patient will look aware, will look awake, but they may even speak. Generally, I haven't seen a lot make sense, but they're in a dreamlike state. Post-ictal states will last a few minutes, as much as 10 minutes in my experience. And they can go right back into a seizure, or their brain is going to stop seizing and they will just sit there blinking, and you have to be quiet. You have to keep them quiet, keep them down, keep them calm until the postictal period is over. You don't need to be asking them a bunch of questions. It's just a calm down, like a cool off. The brain is resetting itself. Okay, so this goes into the stages, the prodromals. Not every seizure patient has. If you have it, you're lucky, but they get like a feeling, or they have symptoms that can alert those around them that they're going to have a seizure. And it can include an aura. It's strange. If you do get auras, you are fortunate, because it gives you these few fleeting minutes to prepare. So if you see a seizure patient on YouTube or TikTok that is bringing awareness and films themselves having a seizure and they have auras, you will notice they will go quickly lay on the floor. They will push the furniture away from themselves. They will hit a button if they have a system where they hit a button and it calls somebody for help. Often animals, they're service animals that are trained for seizures, quite expensive. They will alert the person. They can smell the chemical change in the body that will alert them that their person is about to have a seizure. They will alert the person, and the person can lay down. I saw one gal who had a seizure in Walmart, and her dog alerted her to it. And she started screaming, "Seizure, seizure," to the employees. And it took the employees a couple seconds to figure out what was going on. They saw the dog's jacket, and the gal ran over to like where the entrance was and got on the little carpet area and told the checker, the guy that checks your receipts, "Seizure, I'm having a seizure." And she laid on the floor, and just as she got on the floor, she started seizing. But it was fantastic. It showed the dog doing its job. Also, please never let your children pet a service animal. Please, please. You see a service animal and your kid wants to pet them, you explain to them why you can't pet them. Okay, then you have your ictal phase. Lasts from the first symptom, including the aura, to the end of the seizure. So you have your prodromal or your aura right before. Then you have your ictal where you're seizing, having it happen. And then you're going to have your post-ictal phase, which is directly after. Yeah, it can last for hours. I've personally never had in 20 years someone who had hours. Sorry. Can't tell you about those. When to see the doctor? Well, if the person isn't breathing when the seizure stops. Yeah, wow. Okay, hold on. Okay, so since Lisa's father has non-epileptic seizures and what sounds like absence seizures, psychogenic seizures, he should be having EEGs. And this are all things that you do to find out what's going on. The high density EEG, CAT scans, and then they will PET scan, MRI, contrast. They will pinpoint any areas. And yeah, going to a neuro. If he is on metformin for his diabetes, that can be an underlying cause. But yeah, PET scan, CAT scan, MRI. I don't know if Pittsburgh, they'd have a SPECT. But yeah, definitely they would need to find out why he's having them or, and I think it's more likely, Lisa isn't being told everything because the family knows she goes on TikTok and begs and uses the father as fodder. I don't believe the family explains what is going on with Pop. I think they make it very basic, and then she embellishes it and runs with it. If she was my family member, I wouldn't tell her a fucking thing. But you have to tell her something because she lives in the house. So I think they're telling her the bare necessity, and we know that Lisa lies, so are we to believe this dad's becoming catatonic and wobbling? I don't know. I'm going off what she says. The only thing I know for sure is Ronnie, months ago, said their dad did not have epilepsy. I remember it because somebody asked her during a live. Now, on Cleveland Clinic, they go, I think they explain it a lot better than Mayo did. Causes of seizures. Now, you can have your provoked ones, which are psychogenic, also known as non-epileptic, and it requires either a trigger, as they say, can be a temporary condition or certain circumstances. Okay, so like a fight, an argument, and it makes your brain neurons just start going ticka, 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 and having a fight. You're overloading the electrical system, and it just short circuits, and then you have a seizure. Okay, that's the best way I can describe it. Or you have your unprovoked seizures, which are epileptic people. Anyone born with an epileptic condition. And it can be a side effect. Epilepsy can be a side effect of a disease or a condition. Some people are just born with epilepsy. So with no other comorbidity. So obviously he has acquired this over time, and we never heard of him. And I have been watching Lisa for a long time. Never heard of him having seizures until she moved in. So these are definitely provoked. They go as far as to say what seizure triggers are. These are things that can trigger one. So we know he's a diabetic. His blood sugar could be too high, too low. Certain medications, Wellbutrin. Yeah, a lot of SSRIs can do it. A lot is coming out about metformin. I read some of the journals that Hubs brings home, and I am seeing a lot of things coming out about metformin. Not to say it's not a great drug for people who are diabetic. It is. But I'm just starting to see that people are popping up with seizures, amongst other things. Flashing or flickering lights, which is why you see the movie things, the movie warnings. Heat illness. Oh boy, that's a big one. Yeah. Extreme temperatures, like I said. And see, up here, we used to get a lot of people like roofers, construction workers. They would fall off the job site. Ploo, and you'd think you were responding to a trauma. Then you'd start asking questions. No, he had a seizure because of 120 degrees. That's why most construction crews here quit at noon. High fevers, febrile seizures. We went over that mostly in children. It can happen in adults. Like I've told you guys before, febrile seizures, kids spike ungodly numbers. Okay. 104 and the kid still hasn't seized. Just wait. Give it an hour. Yoing. You'll see 106. 104 on an adult is like a crisis emergency. Okay. As we get older, we cannot tolerate high temperatures like a baby. Think of a baby's brain more like a rubber ball. It's like squishy, and it can swell. It can withstand high temperatures a lot better than an adult. Babies are made to withstand everything. Think of chicken pox. Chicken pox in a kid? No biggie. Chicken pox in an adult? Deadly. Okay, and I'm not kidding you. I have seen some one day I'll tell you the story of the guy. Oh, Jesus. Oh, he was bad. He was in ICU for a long time. Sleep deprivation. That is probably one of the things we see a lot up here because we have so much meth. And you'd get people on meth binges, and they hadn't slept in 6, 8 days. No joke. Like not slept one wink. Seriously. They just kept using, smoking, whatever. And then they seize. And everyone would freak out and run away and leave them. And it was like, wow, those are your friends? Great friends. And then they come in and they be in leather restraints, having seizures. And we'd have to keep undoing them, doing them, undoing them, doing them. And they'd get sedated and put on the vent because you couldn't control the seizures for a long time. With those kinds of seizures, the meth is causing the electrical shorting. And you just have to wait for the meth to get out of their system, all the chemicals. Okay? Because if you've ever seen a list of what meth it's made out of, yeah, you have to wait for all those chemicals, like 40 fucking chemicals, to work their way out. There are some chemicals you can reverse. There are a lot you cannot. Stress. Probably one of the biggest. And like I said, arguments. I have gone on a million calls where somebody's dad or grandpa was arguing, and it freaks the shit out of the whole family because grandpa just went down and seized and never had seized before. But he had a stroke 10 years ago. Those little pathways for his synapses and his neurons were damaged in the stroke 10 years ago. But nobody thought anything of it because he recovered. Fantastic. God, grandpa's out golfing. We were just having an argument about whatever, and it happened. Yeah. Because when the neurons are like firing rapidly, All of a sudden, they're trying to get through the damaged area and they can't. They're like, and all of them are bunching up, and then poo, you have a short circuit. And Grandpa had a seizure. May never have a seizure again, but at least now we know Grandpa had a seizure and he won't be able to drive for a year. Substance use, alcohol withdrawal. Alcohol withdrawal, it's a given. You're going to have seizures. I've had the pleasure of only having one patient in the unit in my entire career who had an alcohol drip. I had never seen one. I had read about them. I had never seen one. I had to go down to the pharmacy to pick up the bottles. They came in glass bottles. And it's no joke. They do IV alcohol and the guy was on a vent. It was to prevent him from going back into status because he had been at a rehab. He started seizing. He didn't stop and landed in ICU. Actually, he was in CVICU. He was in the 4th bed. I did not forget that, man, because it was the only time I ever saw alcohol IV. I know it's crazy. There's some nurses out there that can back me up. It is weird, but it happens. I think it's pretty telling that 20 years I only had one patient. One. But I felt privileged. I was like, woo, awestruck holding that IV glass bottle. So conditions that can cause seizures, aneurysms, anything to do with the brain tumors, brain damage, strokes, hypoxia, anything to do with the brain, of course, could cause a seizure. Diabetes. Yeah, diabetes is bad news. A lot of people think, oh, it's no big deal. Just change my diet and exercise, take this little Ozempic and lose weight. No. You lose limbs. You can lose your marbles. You can lose your life. Okay? Hubs had a girlfriend that went into DKA and did not come out the other side. She was 26. I used to take care of her. Concussions, traumatic brain injuries. Anytime you lose your consciousness, get whacked on the head, yeah, you have a possibility. Any kind of bruise to the brain, you can have a possibility. Alzheimer's, dementias, eclampsia, electrolyte problems. Yeah. Dehydration can cause it. Rapid dehydration, like if you're working out in the sun, if you're sweating and your electrolytes get out of balance, because when you sweat, you lose all your salt. That's why Gatorade was made. You need to replace it. You need to drink, even if you're not thirsty. Keep drinking. Epilepsy, of course. Genetic conditions. Well, that's pretty broad. Hormone related changes. Yeah, I don't know how common that is, but I think they're talking more like pituitary, adrenal, those hormones. I think when you list it that way, you're thinking estrogen. I've never had an estrogen one. Encephalitis, meningitis. Yeah, those are sepsis. Those are all obvious. Strokes, toxins and poisonings. Yeah, carbon monoxide poisoning, heavy metal poisoning, lead poisoning, bites and stings. Of course, allergic reactions can cause seizures at times. I don't see it. Psychogenic seizures, which is part of mental health, or conversion syndrome. Yeah. If you are very sensitive, you can seize. Autism. Some kids with autism and some adults with autism are very sensitive to things said to them, and it can actually cause them to have a seizure. It's like they're so hurt by what somebody said unknowingly that their brain won't stop. They are thinking inside their head about what was said, and it is so offensive to them or so hurtful that they actually can wind themselves into having a seizure. What are the risk factors for having a seizure? Well, Ron has underlying medical conditions. He does not have a family history of seizures per Ronnie. He's not a child, but he is over 50. Ta-da! When they tell you about status. Yeah, status is bad. Seizures and mental health. I'm sure he is depressed. I'm sure he is anxious. But then again, he's just like Lisa. So that's been your TED Talk on seizures. Yeah, I don't know what to make of Lisa and her dad. Yeah, we're waiting for you to have seizures, aren't we? Doc said you were going to have them. I haven't seen them yet, knock on wood. You have enough problems, right? Right. You're losing your fur even more. What is going on, dude? You're going to turn into a Shar-Pei. Look at this. Look at this. Don't have seizures, dude. Okay? You already look like a chihuahua. You do. Look, you're bald. I need to make you a little hair shirt. Yeah, it's very confusing to me because she describes certain things, but we know Lisa lies. So we have to go on what we do know. We know that Ron is a diabetic. We know he gets a disability check. We know he's had a stroke in the past. It was verified that he was on a vent, and it sounds like for 2 days, and that he's been bumped out he got dropped onto the floor, the med surge floor. I don't know. I think the seizures are just psychogenic and caused from stress and anxiety. And I'm sure since all you have to do is think, when did they start? We never heard Lisa we always heard Lisa say his blood sugar was off. His blood sugar was off. I need money for an Uber when she was at the apartment. I remember when Jace was 10 and she was using that. Well, Dad's blood sugar's off. My mom called. He can't take me to the clinic. I need money for an Uber. It was always his diabetes. So he might not be managing it well. People, when they're under stress, they can stop managing their diabetes as well. He may not be eating properly. We know he eats. We've seen his pictures recently. It's funny. They never talked about seizures until Lisa moved in. So with my training and with my experience, I'm going to say it's pretty obvious Lisa is stress inducing these. And it may not be her directly, it's her indirectly. He's having to supply another mouth with food. He's having to pay, well, he isn't paying his rent, but maybe he isn't paying his rent because he's paying for her cigarettes and he's paying for her food and he's giving her money here and there because she takes out the garbage. And I don't know if the son pays rent. So he's got 2 adult children to care for. And he's getting evicted. So he has enough stress. I know he doesn't, and he has to pay for Mama's bingo. And bingo cards aren't cheap. Thank God you don't play bingo because you would run me bankrupt. Well, that's been your TED Talk on seizures. If I think of anything else, we're going to go over later this week another medical TED Talk on something Trish said. I was going to do it last week and something else came up. So this has been your Seizure TED Talk. Any questions? Put them in the comments. Toodles!